Just ahead on American Black Journal, a major foundation changes its funding strategy to focus on creating opportunities for all Detroiters. We'll get the details. Plus, dolls of color are the stars at a show celebrating culture and self-love. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merilite cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. We hear a lot about the so-called two Detroits. The downtown area is growing rapidly, but the rebirth of the neighborhoods is occurring at a much slower pace. Now, the Hudson-Webber Foundation is responding to the changing need of the city by shifting its focus from downtown to the neighborhoods. The new funding strategy centers on creating opportunities for all Detroiters to share in the city's prosperity. Here now to talk about the new approach is the president and CEO of the Hudson-Webber Foundation, Malenka Clark. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And of course, I have to disclose up front that I am a board member at the Hudson-Webber Foundation, so I'm one of the people responsible for bringing you here to Detroit. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that. Let's talk about this new direction. It does coincide with your leadership of the foundation. You've been here.
Yeah, a little over a year.
About a year, and you're putting a real mark on the foundation's work in terms of just shifting that focus. It's not a new focus. I keep saying it's just it's a turn. Right.
It's certainly it's building on the legacy of the foundation, and this is a foundation, of course, that has roots in the city, just the origins of the foundation that go back nearly 80 years. So the overarching mission is improving the quality of life in Detroit, and I do think that one consistent thing about where the foundation has been and the strategies have changed over time, as they should, because the city has changed over time. But there's been this consistent and hopeful voice around what the future of Detroit can look like. And that's sort of coming into the foundation. That's what I knew about it, and I'm sort of proud to build on that legacy. And we're really in a place now where we want to achieve sustainable and broad-based prosperity in the city, because that's what's going to.
Yeah, I mean that's the trick, though. I mean, right? I mean, I feel like the philanthropic community has been super involved in investing in the growth that we've seen in downtown and midtown, and that matters enormously, and we can see really tangibly what that is. It's a much harder trick, I think, to get out into neighborhoods where you don't have the infrastructure that we had downtown and midtown. You don't just have to create jobs in empty places. You have to invest in people, and human capital is a much trickier dynamic than buildings.
It's a challenging task, but it's critical. And I think, as you think about strategies around economic growth, which are focused on bringing businesses in and growing the number of jobs and development in downtown and midtown, that is critical. That's the engine of the city's growth, but it's of course it's necessary but not sufficient.
Yeah. Well, it's disconnected from these other things.
And so that opportunity piece, as you say, is what we need to grow the pie, but we need to be really intentional about how that pie is being distributed. And right now, as you well know, we've not achieved that at all.
Yeah.
And so, I think a couple of exciting things are happening though. So of course, I get to come in after there has been progress that you can see and feel in downtown and midtown. In fact, that's part of what attracted me to want to come to Detroit, because you can sort of feel the excitement that's happening here. Doesn't mean the work's done. The recovery is fragile, but it is sort of a place to stand upon.
Yeah.
Of course, there's lots of capacity in the city, lots of energy. And I think that, as we have talked about, the way we're going to inform our investment approach is exactly around, right, this challenging piece, but it is empowering human capital, thinking about what are the barriers to progress for residents, which, could be looking into workforce development strategies, wealth attainment and the like, to make sure that they're able to participate.
Yeah. One of the things I think is really difficult in making that transition as a foundation is geography, right? It's such a big city, and there are so many places that are underinvested, and so many places where there is no investment in human capital at all. So, talk about the process of trying to identify how to make a difference without just, you could send dollars all over the place.
Right.
How do you bring focus to that?
Right. So we certainly need to be strategic as we think about place-based investments. So, the foundation, I think, is known particularly for investments in place for making safe and vibrant neighborhoods. That's the work that happened in Midtown, fantastically successful. And I think that as we now have this geographic flexibility, to your point, we are going to have to be disciplined in how we move into those places, move into different neighborhoods in the city. We can't move everywhere all at once, although there's an important caveat to that I want to come back to. But we need to think about who are we. We're not isolated here, right? So we have to hold hands with others as we move into different geographies, and that's going to be key.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and part of what's informing our strategy too, is really lifting up first, and this is all related, but kind of what are the systemic barriers to opportunity, and those don't necessarily need to land in a particular neighborhood. In fact, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That you are you're pulling levers that are going to have an impact across a wide geography. And I have a policy background. Before coming to the Hudson-Webber Foundation, I did policy work both with the federal government and in nonprofits. So big believer about the change that you can see pulling those levers. And so we're going to be really deliberate about that area of work as well.
Yeah. What about balance? Hudson-Webber's deeply invested in things in Midtown and downtown. Does shifting the focus mean walking away from those things?
So we're not, as I said, we're building on what we're doing, and we're cognizant of the both and piece, and also, to take Midtown as a great example, as some people have said, the 30-year overnight success story. But the reality is, there's a ton of concentrated poverty within that community.
Absolutely.
And not only that, but certainly as we think about, so it's sort of a both and. There are concentrated poverty that's existing there, but also lots of opportunity in terms of anchor institutions where the jobs are. There's transportation and the like. So I wouldn't want our work to leave Midtown.
Yeah.
I think that we have to, make those linkages in a really deliberate way. And so the work might look different, but
And I feel like that's the challenge that the government here, local government faces, right? It's not just moving to think about the neighborhoods and think about the problems there. It's finding ways to leverage the things that are happening in downtown and midtown so they help make the neighborhoods better, drawing those connections. And that's a really hard thing to get people to accept or think about, but it's also, I think it's a harder thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think all of that is right. But I do think that building on, and this is something that, you know, that our foundation and others have really focused in ways that they leverage their dollars, is making those linkages, you know, building on the relationships that exist, carrying some of that learning to other places, and then using that also to bring people together.
Yeah, yeah. Your background coming to Detroit is really interesting as well. I want to give you a chance to talk about especially the work you were just immediately doing in the Justice Department.
Yeah, it's been a probably not a straight journey.
No.
Tried a bunch of different things. But most recently, very most recently, I was with the Justice Department working at the Office of Community-Oriented Policing. I landed there right after being at the White House working on criminal justice policy and the like. And when it's actually a little bit ironic, when I got to the cop's office, I said, oh, okay, things are going to calm down now. And Ferguson happened in Baltimore. Right? And we were very much the administration's landing place for you know, developing the administration's response to the national conversation that was happening around policing.
Really important work, but also quite relevant, and I think coming to a place like Detroit.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, and I'm happy to sort of carry those experiences and learnings to what's happening here. And as you know, the Hudson-Webber Foundation also has a safe and just community portfolio.
Absolutely, yeah, very important. Okay, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, up next, a Detroit show that places the spotlight on dolls of color. But first, we continue our look back at the 1967 rebellion with the Detroit Historical Society's Oral History Project. Here's retired U.S. District Court Judge Gerald Rosen.
I remember several things. I remember going to the edge of the end of our block, which was only a mile north of 8 Mile, and sitting with our neighbors and my younger brother, watching the black smoke furl up into the air, and just being amazed by what was happening, that people would be burning, you know, their own stores in their neighborhood and their own homes, and I just found it I found it almost incredible to believe that this was going on. And I remember sitting and talking with my neighbors, and people wondering whether this was going to come north of 8 Mile, you know, whether the rioting and the looting that was taking place was going to spread, whether it was going to come north of 8 Mile. And I have a very distinct memory as well of course, later in the week, seeing the newsreel photos of the tanks. The president and the governor had ordered the National Guard and federal troops into Detroit to restore order, or to attempt to restore order. And I remember asking my dad if we could drive down and see the tanks. My dad didn't think that was a very good idea. And I have one other really, you know, sort of strong image of that. And I was a huge baseball fan, and Willie Horton, who was the Tigers' left fielder, I remember reading about him after the Sunday doubleheader. I think he had hit a home run. And the articles were that right after the second game, he didn't even bother to change. He just got in his car and he drove down to where the riots had started, which was where he had grown up, around 12th Street, I think it was. And he had gotten up on his car and exhorted his neighbors and friends to stop looting and stop burning. I don't know how much of an impact it had, but I remember very, very well.
The 6th annual Detroit Doll Show is coming to town next weekend. It's billed as the largest show of its kind in the Midwest, celebrating culture, beauty, and self-love with dolls of color. Doll makers from 11 states in Canada are going to display their unique creations. There will be doll making workshops, raffles, a doll lookalike contest, an auction, and entertainment. More than 1,300 people are expected to attend. The event's motto is "Love the Skin You're In." Joining me now is the founder of the show, Sandra Epps, along with doll artist Jacqueline Cole. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you so much.
And of course, we have to welcome the dolls, who are also here with us for the segment. Talk about the idea behind this show. How do you come up with the idea that we ought to have a show of dolls, and that I think I love the conceit here that it helps people think about who they are and reflecting who they are in art.
I think it all stemmed from me and my past, what I went through as a child, being very ill, diagnosed with lupus, and being on so many medications and blowing up and becoming really large, and it affected my self-esteem. So that's kind of where it stemmed from. And I wanted to do something for other women and children to make them feel good about themselves and to know that they're beautiful, being who they are and their natural essence, the natural hair and their thick lips and nose.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's.
I mean, we've talked for a long time, at least in the Black community, about that need to have the image of self-beauty, the idea of self-beauty reinforced through dolls, and it's still sort of difficult. I mean, if you go to the store, you go to Toys R Us, walk down the doll aisle, there's still a real challenge in trying to get that done.
And it's exactly where I shop at 8 Mile at this particular Sam's Club, same thing, and I notice it every time I go out there. You never see any dolls. And it's 80% African Americans who actually shop at the store.
Right,
So,
but there's no black dolls in the aisles.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's much needed. And so with the doll show, we bring that, but we bring unique dolls as well, because we have the artists who come in from all over the world to participate with the doll show.
Right, right. Talk about doll making and sort of how that fits into the theme of self-love and worth.
Well, I've been doing dolls for the last 30 years. And I started out as a fashion designer. And I went out and I went to a doll show once, and it's like, wow, I never knew this existed.
Yeah.
It was a black doll show. And so I went home and I made my first doll, and I've been making them ever since. And I make heritage dolls. I start from Africa and come to present day. So I use only African fabrics. And we needed we got the Queens of Africa right here, and that was much needed because they come in 3 different shades and they all have kinky hair. And so I do well with them because it's a doll that let the kids know that this is you, and they love it. They love having the doll that looks like them. And then I also do the fashion dolls. So I do a variety of dolls. I mean, I'm just kind of artist that I just like them all.
But one of the things that's sort of interesting is the diversity of the dolls, and I'm not just talking about skin color, but the way they're made, the clothes that they're in. I mean, there's a real range here that's represented.
Yeah, and I pretty much do one of a kind.
Yeah. So no doll is like another.
No, everything is different. You know, I use different fabric, or I use different hair, or I do the head wraps. So everything is different. And with the Queens of Africa, which is a new line of dolls that just came in from Nigeria, and with them, I sell them in the box the way they come, and then I take them out and I custom them too.
You custom clothes?
Yeah, I custom the clothes for them so that I can give them a more unique style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I have to ask about is the doll Lookalike contest.
It is the most it's the most popular thing. When I did it once, it was supposed to have been a one-time thing, but people loved it so much.
To do it again?
They wanted to do it again.
Is it literally you look like your doll?
Yes.
You make a doll that looks like you?
So what you do is you dress up like your doll. So either you dress your doll to look like you, or you go find the doll's garment or whatever, but you look exactly like your doll. You have to have your doll in hand. And of course, we put on a little bit of music and let them do a little bit of runway strut there with their dolls. And then we do first place, second place, and third place. And it's for children and adults. You would be surprised, the adults that come along and participate.
I bet I would be surprised by that. Talk about the sort of cultural imperative behind what you're doing here. This idea that, I love the idea that art somehow helps heal the cultural wounds, right? Whether it's a doll, and there are other ways I think you can do that as well. But there is something about art and the making of art and the sharing of art that I think really helps people think differently about themselves.
And I can say that is true 150% because of my background in art. I am an artist. I have my degree in art. But when I was very ill with lupus and I could not speak, it was the art that helped me get through. So yeah, you're right on point with that. And then to bring in these children to not only see dolls that reflect them, it's open to the public. And you get a chance to participate and do some arts and crafts as well. So it's not just coming to shop and
you can actually maybe learn to make a doll.
Yeah, that's where the workshops come in. So we do have the workshops, and then creating art hands-on. It's wonderful for the self-esteem, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. What does the doll making do for you, as opposed to the people who may be buying?
My soul.
Does it?
and I put my soul into my dolls, and I'm hoping that when people look at them, they can feel how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, because not only do I do the fashion dolls, I also do like cotton pickers, washwomen. I come through the whole
sort of history.
Yeah, I do queens, I do kings, I do warriors, you know. So, and I want them to feel how I feel as a proud African-American woman. I want them to know that they come from a proud generation of people, you know, and I want them to feel that in my dolls.
Yeah. How hard is it to make the dolls?
Oh, for me, it's easy.
Yeah, well, you're an artist, but...
Yeah, because when people look at them, it's like, how long did it take?
I know,
or
they're
you know,
quite complicated.
Because sometimes I can just sit and look at it, you know, just have the doll there with no clothes on, and I can sit there and I can just look at it maybe for an hour or so, just till I get that image come through and tell me what to put on that doll. So each doll is individual, and I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even know what it's going to look like until I'm finished
until you're done?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when children see your dolls, what's the reaction?
They love them. Of course, they start grabbing them, so I have to put a sign up that says,
"Don't touch the dolls."
Yeah, because they start grabbing at them, pull them off the table. But that's why I started with the Queens of Africa, because they're for kids. You know, they're for kids, and these are more art pieces that people use in their house. So a lot of people that's looking for an art piece for their house, they buy the soft sculpture.
Right.
You know, so.
What is the range of doll makers? I mean, the folks who you have participate in the show, where do you find them?
Oh, thank goodness for social media.
Yeah. Right, like everything else on Facebook.
Yeah, it's Facebook, through other friends, and then over being an artist and knowing other artists who create dolls. So that's been very helpful here. And so that connecting on social media helped as well. Knowing some folks, Myla Perkins and Debbie
is there a sort of robust community of doll makers of this kind?
Yeah, I'm finding out more and more the longer that I do this that they are out there. They are out there, and it's growing. I would say for a while it was not happening because years ago, I don't know if you know Dr. Margaret Betts.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
She used to be a school board member here in Detroit when I covered Detroit Public Schools 20 years ago.
Yes. So back in the day, she was a part of a doll show that took place at St. Regis years ago, and I remember as a little girl seeing that, and it stuck with me. But that show that they had, I think it was a one-time thing. But later on, here I am, you know, making it and doing the same thing, which I think it was needed then and it's needed now.
Yeah, I remember talking with Dr. Betts about that same issue. Dolls of color being not in demand, not in supply, really, in places, and she was real focused on making sure that we change that. Right?
Yes, and although we have more doll artists, you know, we have the Sherry Crawley, there's a lot of people who are creating dolls, but still they're hard to find in stores.
Yeah. Okay, well, congratulations, and thanks very much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, that's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you the next time.
As American Black Journal looks ahead at the next 50 years, we want to hear from you, the viewers. Tell us what you think of this program and what you'd like to see on future episodes. Visit AmericanBlackJournal.org to take a quick survey and share your opinion. Thank you.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.